What is up, YouTube? So this video is going to be a little different. It's going to be an about me video, right? And this is really for the people who perhaps watched my content in years past and now are seeing videos of recent and are like, what is going on, right? So I used to make prank videos. I made all types of prank videos. I'd prank my grandmother. I'd go through McDonald's drive-thru and do a rap that I wrote about give me a double cheeseburger, hold the pickle. If there's pickle, I'm going to twist your nipple, right? So I would do raps like that and prank videos, whatever. And eventually, I both literally and metaphorically graduated, right? I went to school for English. I got my bachelor's of science in English. My concentration is literature. And I'm trying now, I'm at the point in my life where I need to decide what to do next, right? I sort of decided, okay, I want to investigate literature and I want to take it seriously. And I like looking at the condition of man, and I feel like literature certainly does that. There's an author who says something about literature documents man alive, or it is man alive, rather. Not even so much documents it. But so back when I was trying to decide what to do, what to study in college, I wasn't sure to go for nursing, because that certainly sounded financially rewarding, right? I could go get an associate's degree at my community college, hopefully get accepted into the nursing program, and then come out after 4 years and make, whatever, $60,000 a year, which, I mean, or more, depending. And that may not sound like a shit ton, but in poor Western Maryland, it would afford me to be able to live on my own and, you know, move out of my grandmother's house, etc., and maybe buy a little less shittier car than the one I have right now, right? So, but it feels as though, regardless of what you do, unless you're going to be making 6 figures plus a year, you're going to only be striving towards subsistence style of living, right? So screw that. I'd rather do something, and not that, I think nursing would be rewarding. Now, psychology is something I wish I would have given more attention to, right? Because what inspired me to teach, or to try to teach, was watching, and I'm going to say his name, right? And I am certainly not in line with this guy's political beliefs, but as far as him as a professor, and I wish he would return to his roots, Jordan Peterson. He's went a bit off the deep end ever since he got addicted to benzodiazepines, and you know, now he can't help but take himself so damn serious and views himself almost as this martyr in a culture war, right? I wish he would return to his roots and, you know, continue to teach. But I haven't checked out any of his content. I would just watch his, like, Harvard lectures and his lectures in the University of Toronto, and him teaching whatever, maps of meaning and about psychology, I guess. So I know he had his own practice. He was a clinical psychologist. Not anymore, I guess. But anyway, he's neither here nor there. But he's just, I mention him. Oh, wow, someone's camping up here. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I don't really want to infringe upon someone's living quarters. But, you know, I walk this path all the time, so we're just going to keep moving forward. They're not home at the moment. I'm not sure where they're at. Anyway, so, because I walk this path all the time, and that was not there a few days ago. So but if people need a place to say, hey, man, my backyard, I don't own this land that I'm walking on, but, you know, feel free. Hopefully they don't trash it, though, and tarnish it. But God bless them, right? the mythological representation of the good man Jesus. Bless them. So, the God that may or may not exist, bless them, right? So anyway, yeah, like he inspired me to think that to feel as though I wanted to teach and I wanted to educate. Now, I didn't realize at the time the reason I was also interested in this is because he was teaching something along the lines of behavior and behavioral patterns and how this was a predictor of certain dispositions, and this was very interesting to me, right? But I ended up choosing English because I did well in English and I like to write. I also like being creative. You know, my first dream as a kid was to be a comedian. I remember in the 4th grade sitting around the lunch table and telling these cracked out stories of Big Joe and Little Joe and their journeys into Michael Jackson's, what is it called, Neverland Ranch. And, you know, just, you can imagine, right? Totally fictional, but, and made up. Like, I always had this ability to do this type of stream of consciousness improv when it related to comedy. And I would draw from certain things across my life and things I'd seen, and they would sometimes, like, just a confluence of lived experience would, you know, culminate in, like, just to me being funny, I guess, essentially. So it's not that I wouldn't like to return to my roots in that sense, and perhaps I will one day. I mean, I'd really would like to. I'd like to do a multitude of things, though. So I chose English because I like to write, and I wanted to learn more about why we do the things we do and things of that nature. English also feels like a freer form. There's a lot of subjectivity, so much so that sometimes, you know, certain grammar rules feel arbitrary, and they very much are. I mean, grammar's decided based on a committee of, you know, intellectuals that meet however often times and decide on these arbitrary rules of where to place a comma and what defines language and elements of language. But anyway, like, I like that subjectivity because it could allow me to be wrong but also be right, you know? And if I had a good enough argument, perhaps I could argue my stance, and maybe I'm neither wrong nor right. So you can hide in that level of subjectivity. It can also be discouraging because you never really know whether you're moving in the right direction with an analysis. You have to trust your intuition to tell you, you know, okay, this feels right, this sounds right. Of course, I learned across time when writing research papers that it's more of a conversation and not a regurgitating of certain research you've done. You know, you have to pick the points in which prior research is missing out and then close in on these gaps and fill these gaps with thorough analysis of whatever text. There's a reason I certainly enjoy analyzing poetry more than longer stories, you know, whether they be short works of fiction or novels, you know, because poetry, you can go line by line with it, whatever, you know, a one-page poem or a few stanza poem, or if you're looking at sonnets, you know, you have 14 lines only to pick apart, as opposed to 1,000 pages, or 1,000+ pages of Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace, and Anna Karenina, whatever, you know, Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. Like, so I certainly found a lot, like, meshed with poetry well. I've also heard it described poetry as the most economically feasible form of literature, of writing, I guess. It lends itself to people without much, I guess, right? It can be written quickly and across, like, going on a journey. I don't know. Anyway, I've heard it described that way, and it feels that way, right? And that's sort of where I fell in love with writing, was writing poetry / kind of like these little raps. I've always been into rap music. So, and language felt at that time like a never-ending puzzle, like the greatest human-made puzzle that is totally unsolvable. It's a labyrinth of signs and symbols that may never be completed, but to at least embark on such a journey, try to complete such a puzzle. Oh man, more equipment. A whole suitcase. Okay, we're gonna head back that way. Definitely some people living up here somewhere. Maybe they're down at Sheets. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's what this channel has become, is me putting my degree into practice as I try to decide whether I want to go for an MAT and teach middle or high school, or go for an MFA, Master's in Fine Arts, and try to teach creative writing, as well as maybe some literature courses and some basic entry-level English classes, whether that be at community college or at the university level, or to go all the way for a PhD, and get a doctorate in literature and write a dissertation on something specific and do all the 5 years worth of research. But to do that, you have to secure funding, and you're teaching, I would imagine, alongside, and getting paid jack shit, and then you come out and you have to try to hit the job market. That sounds difficult to enter, and you've spent all this money, and you have to begin paying back loans at that point, and it doesn't sound like you're going to be in a secure place financially until much longer down the line. And I just don't know if I'm willing to undergo that type of commitment. Now, Cornel West, and of course he's taking this from Plato, talking about how the unexamined life is not worth living, and you have to decide that for yourself. And becoming a teacher really, in some sense, is becoming a lifelong student of education and of wisdom and knowledge. And I think that's certainly a worthwhile journey. So, but yeah, this channel is now going to be me reviewing literature, poems, whatever I like, and going from there. If I make other videos, I make other videos. I've always sort of been a random, just person who impulsive, does what he wants at a moment's notice, and then maybe 3 days later he hates that thing. But I never stopped liking writing, and I'm liking reading more and more because it only informs on my writing and my ability to reference certain literary texts. So yeah, just stay tuned, and hopefully that clears some things up. It feels at this moment, I'm 29 now. Sorry, I'm out of breath from trudging down there and walking back up. It feels at this moment, and talking real fast, I guess. It feels at this moment like exploitative to go through a drive-through and to mess with these food service workers who are making little to no money, or minimum wage, not no money, but. And of course, I always tried to put on a persona and do it in a way in which I was the butt end of the joke. Everyone was meant to be laughing at me, And that can also sort of take a toll on your ego. I heard Nathan Fielder talk about that on some talk show, that he always feels as though, he's the butt of the joke, and that can bring about certain insecurities. People have a tough time taking you serious after that. And people just laughed at him when he said this. And it seemed as though he was being serious, but it's hard to tell. That's, I guess, sort of the whole bit with him. Same with sort of like Dax Flame. Like we don't know if he's doing a bit or not. And that's one of the reasons he became so popular. But yeah, so, and that doesn't mean I'm not against, or I'm against consuming that type of content, or, that shit doesn't make me laugh from time to time. Like, I of course scroll TikTok. Heston James, going into that home appliance store, yelling, "Alan!" That shit was hilarious, and if you're chronically online, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if I would return, I'd want to do it in a more, I don't know, less exploitative nature, but it's hard. Someone's always, in comedy, someone's going to be taking the brunt of the joke. That's what makes things funny, I guess. Things are out of place, or people know you said something rude or whatever, and the awkwardness brings about laughter sometimes. But it's always better to be punching up rather than down. So that's important to keep in mind when doing comedy. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know where I'm at in life, and why I'm reviewing literary texts. Okay. Yeah, and I enjoy it. I really do. It allows me to, like I say, put my degree into practice. It allows me to stay on top of, not become rusty, essentially. That apple juice has to be warm as hell, and the plastics have to be leaking into that bottle. It's hot as hell, man. I am not going to drink it. I would not feel comfortable leaving my stuff up here. But, I mean, who's gonna? Most people don't walk the path this far, so that's funny. And yeah, I just want to continue to stay on top of it, and continue to write and continue to read as I strive to figure out the next chapter in my life. So, yeah, just stay tuned, and thanks for watching.